Welcome to the EndurHunt podcast. I am your host, Andrew. Join me as I share my experiences as an emergent hunter, offer advice on how to overcome challenges, and pursue your passion for hunting. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart lately, and that is physical and mental fitness. This is episode 11. I am calling it Mountain Fit in Texas. Before I get started, I just want to say a disclaimer that I am not trained in physical fitness. I am not licensed in anything. All of the thoughts and opinions that I'm sharing today are my own, from my own experiences, my own thoughts. Please seriously consider your physical condition, what you can and cannot do, what you think you're capable of, the circumstances that you find yourself in. I cannot be held liable for anything that you do to yourself. Please be an adult, think about who you are, know your limitations, and make a plan and act accordingly. This podcast is going to get broken into 3 general sections. First, we're going to talk about why you should care about being physically and mentally in shape before you want a mountain hunt. Then I'm going to share some general guidelines that I think everyone should consider based on my experience in preparing and developing your own fitness plan for your own hunting experience. And then we will share my personal fitness routine that I go through. I'm going to say it again. My experience is my own. This is what works for me. You don't have to use it. Feel free to pick and choose and do what you want. Just the thing that I hope that you get the most out of this podcast is that going into the hunting season, you should be prepared both physically and mentally. I'm going to argue and make the case several times that your mental preparedness may be more important than your physical preparedness, but you do have to have a baseline of performance in order to really go out there, especially in the mountains. Before getting into the nitty-gritty of the podcast, I wanted to share a story of a time where one of my friends was not ready for a hunt. Back in 2020, my friends and I went on an elk over-the-counter rifle hunt in Utah. This is our first time in Ashton National Forest, and there were 4 of us out there hunting. I'm not going to name names on who this person is, but if you're listening, you know who you are. This would be his first time going hunting. He had a tag in his pocket and a very nice rifle. He was in the Army, and we had the entire year to prepare. I told him it was going to be difficult, that he needs to make sure that he's in shape, ready to go. Well, I don't know what training he did, but it wasn't enough training. I can promise you that. Either he got elevation sickness or he was just not prepared. We started at about 7,000 feet and camp was around 8,000, maybe 8,500. From the trailhead, our proposed campsite was about 7 miles of hiking. About 7 miles. We get there with enough time. He and I actually got there the day before. The other 2 showed up, so we had a little bit of time to just kind of walk around, scout, get some sleep in, acclimate a little bit. The second day was going to be difficult for us because that's when we were doing the full 7 miles. We start hiking, and about an hour into it, he's like, I need to stop. I can't do this anymore. He can't keep up. We stop. I'm looking at my clock. The other 2 guys showed up a little bit late. We were starting to run out of daylight. We only had about 2 hours left. We get going again. He makes it about 30 more minutes. We're only halfway to the place that we wanted to camp for the night. And at this point, we only have about an hour and a half until the sun sets. And we are in the dark. And the terrain that we're surrounded with is steep. It's rocky. And there's nowhere where we can sleep. We would have to keep hiking in the dark and then set up a camp in an area we are unfamiliar with in the dark. So what we did was we took his hunter's orange, put it on his pack, marked the waypoint, took 1,000,000 pictures of it, and left it. The 4 of us went up to our camp, found the spot where we could go. We ended up not making it all of the way there. We had to find a different spot, but we found a nice flat spot where we were able to set up our camp, and that was our base camp for the entire hunt. Then me and one other person who were doing all right physically made our trip back to his backpack, recovered it, brought it back up to camp with us. Made it just in time where the sun was setting and it was almost getting too dark for us to see. Don't be that guy. You want to be prepared, because if that doesn't foreshadow what the rest of the hunt was like for him, it should. He never really recovered. By the last day, he didn't even hunt. He basically just sat in camp with Peter, who was sick. Don't be that guy. Take your preparedness seriously. Make sure you are physically ready for the hunt before it starts. The time to get started is now. We have several months still before most of the big hunting seasons. If you have a tag in September, you've still got about 2 months to get ready. Those of you who are lucky enough to have August tags, I am jealous. Good for you. I hope you enjoy those hunts. I take my physical and mental preparedness very seriously now. It's something that is just part of my life. And we'll get to this more later, but I train year round. I am working out all the time. It is part of the lifestyle of who I am. But with that being said, before getting into that, we're going to get on to our first topic, which is why should you care so much about being physically and mentally in shape? And I'm going to start off with the question, why Texas? I call this episode Mountain Fit in Texas. And the reason for that is Texas is very low elevation. So I live 600 feet above sea level. Although I live in the hill country, the immediate area surrounding where I live is very flat. I live near many farms. And farms aren't exactly known. Well, in Texas, most of the farms are in prairie type areas. So very flat, lots of grass, not a lot of hills. You can see for miles in basically any direction. I live outside of Austin, so fortunately for me, I have the ability to go to different parks and explore that way and find ways of adding some hills and terrain into my routines. But the advice and the situations and things I'm going to be talking about today are not exclusive to Texas. Honestly, it kind of applies across the board to the Midwest, the East Coast. And there are certainly in the Northeast and in the Appalachians, there are definitely mountains, right? I'm not going to deny that. Upstate New York also has a lot of mountains. Those add terrain for sure. But depending on the states that you're looking to hunt in, a state like Colorado, for example, where you could feasibly go over 10,000 feet very easily. I've hunted over 10,000 feet in Utah. I hunted at 6,000, 7,000 feet in Wyoming. I hunted at about 8,000 feet in Arizona. Those are conditions that I can't prepare for here in Texas at all, unless I go to like Big Bend, Southwest Texas, or something like that where they actually have elevation. I can't do that. So it's going to be pretty much impossible for me to recreate the oxygen deprivation. It's not realistic for me to go travel somewhere, train, and come back. Like, that's just not going to happen. So even on the East Coast in New Jersey, I basically lived at sea level. And yeah, I had parks where I could get a couple hundred feet of elevation change, but we're not talking thousands of feet. I can't replicate that. And most people who live east, we'll say Texas and east, probably can't either. With a few exceptions, I'm sure there are some out there who have plenty of opportunities. They live in the correct place. But for those of you who don't, like myself, and things you need to be prepared for, when you look at how hunting is when you go out west, you can break it down into several different styles of hunting. There are your backpack hunts where you are taking everything you can on your back, hiking in, bringing camp food, everything with you. You can do day hunts where you are using a campsite or a lodge or something and you only need to bring a day's worth of stuff with you. Regardless, you're still going to need to be able to hike several miles, most likely. And if you do get an animal down, even if you're only a mile away from the trailhead, you still have to carry all of that meat and everything with you back a mile. And that means you need to be prepared for a heavy pack on your back. You need to be prepared to walk on very uneven terrain. Chances are you're not going to be walking on trails. You're not going to be walking on improved ground. You're going to need to be able to handle all of that. And you don't want to be in the position of being unprepared with no one able to help you with an animal down and then losing all of the meat because you didn't take time before the season to get started. Other things that you need to consider. If you live in a place like me, where in Texas at 600 feet above sea level, it's very easy for me to walk a mile. I can walk a mile pretty easy with probably 50 pounds on my back, even more. I usually train at the end of the season, I get up to about 70, 80 pounds. That same mile here, it's a lot different even when I'm at 5,000 feet of elevation. You have less oxygen up there. Your body is not going to perform as well. And you need to give yourself time both to acclimate, but even once you acclimate, you're not going to be at that same level of performance that you were back wherever you're from. That is something that you need to take into consideration. Chances are the terrain that you're going to be hunting in is going to have greater elevation change. You're going to need to be able to maneuver in different ways. Even the best person looking at maps, Google Earth, whatever tool you have, is going to encounter something that they were not prepared for. I feel like I'm pretty decent at this point of e-scouting, and yet every single time I go to a new place, I never really consider just how damn big it is or how difficult it is to navigate the terrain. Think about when you're elk hunting and you encounter like 3 miles of deadfall that you have to go over. It's pretty hard to train for that, and it's very difficult to do if you're not in shape to do it, especially if you have to carry all of your gear on your back. Now, not only do you need to be physically prepared, so you have to be able to put the pack on your back, put your one foot in front of the other, and hike up and down the mountain, get to the animals, take the shot, carry them back out. You have to be able to do all of that effectively, but none of that is possible without the 6 inches between your ears being in the right position it needs to be. I served in the Marines. General Mattis was a huge figure when I was serving, and he used to say the most important 6 inches on the battlefield is between your ears. And I believe that that is true both in warfare, but also in just about any pursuit that you can do. Right now, anyone can come up with an excuse to quit. Our brains are lazy. We like to find reasons for us to go home. When you're out on a hunt, it's easy to think about your bed, your shower, nice food, going home to your family. If you have wife, kids, dogs, you name it, you will find an excuse to come home. And when things start getting bad, if you are not mentally tough, mentally resilient enough to push through that discomfort, you might go home before you could have had a real opportunity at getting an animal. If you pushed one more day, you could have made it potentially. I think about my Arizona elk hunting trip for this reason. It was a 7-day hunt. It took day 5 before we saw a bull elk. There were so many opportunities to leave, so many opportunities to quit. And my guide even told me that many of his other clients in the past had quit before that point. You need to be strong enough to push through the discomfort and know when you are actually at your limit, or if you are simply looking for an out, something that you can use as an excuse to latch on to go home to because it's easier. And that is going to be the default. Your brain is going to want to self-preserve. It's going to try to convince you that, you're better off at home. You could really use that taco right now, or that cheeseburger, or that brisket, whatever draws your attention when you're gone. You need to be able to fight through that because there are going to be difficult times. No plan survives first contact. Same thing for hunting. You get out there, the terrain looks a little bit different than you thought, the animals are in a different position. In order for you to have a successful hunt, you need to be in the correct mental space, and you need to be physically able to carry out the actions required for the hunt. I'm focusing on fitness now because shooting and all of that, getting ready for that side of the hunt is a completely different ball game. You can incorporate the two together. Cameron Haynes is famous for his lift, run, shoot. There are many others like Elk Shape that kind of do the same thing. You can group them together, but this podcast is solely focused on physical and mental fitness and how you can prepare yourself. So that's a lot of the why. Now I think it's time to actually talk about what you should consider. What's some guidelines that I think people should generally think of based on my own experiences. Now, I'm not going to put together a routine. I'm not going to put together a fitness plan. I'm not going to do anything like that in this podcast, and I don't know that I'll ever do anything like that because I'm not a professional in these areas. I know that there are Mountain Tough programs and others that I'm sure that you could go to if you wanted a full built out for you routine. All I want to do is offer some advice on things you should consider if you want to create your own plan, make some changes in your own life. I mentioned before that I train year-round. I don't necessarily train year-round for hunting specifically. I look at my physical fitness journey as a longevity, a vitality journey. I want to be someone who, when I'm 80, 90, if I'm lucky enough, 100 years old, able to walk around and care for myself. I see so many old people today when I'm shopping or out around town, and they just look awful. They're hunched over. They have horrible posture. They walk extremely slowly. It seems almost like they're unable to get around by themselves. Now, maybe that's inevitable. Maybe there's no way that we can avoid that, but I want to do my best to not be that person when I get older. I think it's easy when you're in high school or college, if you go to a traditional college, to stay physically active. You have sports, you have other activities to do, but once you become an adult with other responsibilities and no one holding you accountable, physical fitness is usually one of the first things that goes. And I was guilty of this too. Before I enlisted in the Marines, I didn't try. And then when I got out of the Marines, I was super lazy and I got my ass kicked when I went to Montana. I don't want to be that 90-year-old person that I see at the store with a walker who's hunched over that can only move a few feet every minute. I don't want to be that person. As I've mentioned before, I train year-round. And this is about the time of year when I start to tailor my workout routine towards the hunts that I'm going to be doing. I think about my training, my specified training for hunting in all different aspects of the hunt. The thing I place the most emphasis on is the pack out. I want to be able to effectively, quickly get the meat out of the woods into the coolers and on ice. So that means I need to be able to put a lot of weight on my back securely. I need to be able to support it with my core and my back. And I need to be able to use my legs to actually propel myself through the mountain, through the woods, whatever, uneven terrain, get it all back to my truck, and then come back for more. Because I've never had a pack out where I've only had one trip except for pronghorn, and that's another story. With that exception behind, the next place I can make that consideration is in taking the shot. I need to be in good enough cardio shape that if I have to move quickly or if I spot an animal while I am going from place to place, I am able to effectively calm down, control my breathing, and able to execute a proper shot. And then the last thing that I'm going to consider is something that I really only started thinking of after my elk hunt, and that was because I learned very quickly that I don't have the strongest forearms. When you are skinning an animal and you're using a knife and you're breaking everything down, boy, do you use the rotation of your wrist and using your forearms, it gets sore and tired extremely quickly. So things like finger strength, hand strength, or grip strength, I guess is the proper way of saying it, and forearm strength. Those are things that you might not be considering important, but they can be, and they can make the difference between successfully skinning an animal and accidentally slipping and cutting yourself in the mountain. I use all of these different situations to figure out how I want to develop my routine. So if we think about everything that I've talked about so far, we've talked about putting a lot of weight on my back, being able to use my hands and my wrists, being able to carry that weight out on my back using my legs. Oh, and being able to control my breathing. So that gives us 4 things to focus on. Back strength and core, I'm going to group those together. General cardio, leg strength, and forearm hand strength. So those are the areas that you should be focusing your exercises on. So thinking about doing things like a kettlebell routine involving your entire body, your back and your core, kettlebell swings, doing things like lunges, especially with weight, doing squats. If you have the ability to go to a gym, do squats, or just doing air squats with body weight, those are good too. The thing that I love the most, and this is the time of year where I start doing it 3 days a week, is just going for a long ruck and walking on the grass. I live in the general suburbs and I have some hills, but not really much. The little bit of micro terrain that I do have, though, allows me to articulate my ankles in a way that gives them stability and support and helps me build those stabilizer muscles. So I start off really light. I'm going on my first ruck this week. I'm going to throw 20 pounds on my back. Nothing special. Go for like 3 miles or so. And that is how I'm going to kick off. And then gradually, either week over week or every other week, I'll add a little bit of weight until I get to about 80 pounds. Usually that's about my cutoff, and then I'll start adding distance. So I'll go from 3 miles to 5 to 8. That is my favorite all-around exercise because it is difficult. It's great for cardio. It's good for working your back. If you have the ability to do it on uneven terrain, it's going to be amazing for those stabilizer muscles, and it allows you to really use your boots. Make sure that the rest of your gear is good. Plus, if you use your actual pack, you will be able to test any fitment. If you have any new gear that you wanted to throw on, something that you want to test out, you can throw it on there and you'll be ready to go. The other exercises I just incorporate throughout the week. So I am very cardio heavy focused. I do cardio every morning. I do cardio of some kind 7 days a week. I'm either running, going for a long walk with like my plate carrier on, or this time of year, I swap from the plate carrier over to the pack and I do a true full ruck. That's my cardio routine. I do cardio 7 days a week of some kind. On the strength training side, we talked about the kettlebells already. That is one of my favorite tools that you can use for an all-around body workout. Great for your legs. You can do all sorts of squats, deadlifts, different motions. And then on the forearm front, my best advice, and from what I have done so far, is I got one of those grip strength kits. I'll throw a couple of links for things that I've used in the description of the podcast and on YouTube. But I have just a 35-pound kettlebell. That's the one that I'm using. I'll put the link for that in. and I have this grip strength kit. I actually hurt my hand in jiu-jitsu in February, and I bought this for that purpose, but I have been using it for strengthening my hands and forearms to some extent. And then the other thing you can do is if you have dumbbells or a barbell, you can literally just do hand curls, where you take your, wrist curls. You can do wrist curls where you attempt to articulate your wrist and pull the bar up. You can do those forward and backwards to get all the sides of your forearms. Now, you might be asking yourself, why, if I train year round, am I only training for hunting now, right? We're halfway through the year, it's July. Some hunting seasons start in August, and I would have started earlier if then, but my next hunt is not until October. That's when the general season starts for deer here in Texas. And my real hunt that I'm preparing for is in November, sometime in November. So the reason that I don't prepare year round, and the reason I gave the story about longevity in the beginning, is because it is difficult to use hunting as a motivator throughout the entire year. The mind likes to be lazy, and it likes to focus on the minimal effort, the lowest path of resistance that it can take. If you set all of your goals on hunting, unless you are a rare person like Cam Hanes, chances are you are going to fail and you are going to not be able to stick to your routine. And that's the important thing about all of this, is you need to come up with whatever routine you will actually use. I mentioned I do cardio 7 days a week. It took me a long time to get there. It took me several years to get there to that point. It took me a long time to get to where I could actually do some form of exercise and movement every day. And I'm not perfect either. I was sick last week and I did not work out one day. And there are times where I go on vacation and I don't work out for a whole damn week. It is what it is. But when I come back, I get right back on the horse and I go back after it again. Whatever routine you come up with, whatever it is, it can be the best thing on paper, but if you're not actually going to use it, then it's not going to help you on the mountain when it counts. All right, we've hit on the strength training and we've talked a bit about cardio in terms of rucking. The next thing is getting some other higher intensity cardio exercise in your routine. You can do biking, you can do running. Personally, I like running. I am a runner. My wife and I recently got bikes, and I might start incorporating that into the routine. But as of now, my primary high level 2 type cardio exercise is going to be running. It is hard to replace running because you get your heart pumping and it forces you to push your body both physically and mentally, because there are certain breakpoints that you will hit, especially if you start doing longer distance runs, where your mind will tell you that it's time to stop, but really you can keep going. Keeping in line with the physical aspect of things so far, we'll stay there. Let's talk about how you can translate some of this exercise to hunting practice. Wherever possible, do your cardio on hills, mountainous terrain, anything uneven. If you have nothing uneven, just run on the grass. Just something that's unsupported that's going to force your feet, your ankles to articulate so that you have some stability. The last thing that you want is to hit that unstable terrain for the first time when you're hunting. Then you get half a mile in or a mile into your hike and your legs, your calves, your thighs are just gone. Especially if it's a 7-day or greater hunt, you're going to be in for a world of pain. One of the things that I like to live by is I want my training to be more difficult than the execution. I want to attempt to figure out, all right, if my plan is to do a hike, if my base camp is going to be 5 miles from the trailhead. So I'm going to park, I'm going to take all of my gear. Let's say I have let's say my load is about 55 pounds. Generally, I'm probably around 55 pounds of my actual load for, let's say, a 6-day hunt, 7-day hunt. If I'm supposed to go 5 miles, and that is the plan, well, I'm going to want my pack to be about 80 pounds, and I'm going to want to go 8 miles. I'm going to want to add weight and distance to try and offset the fact that I can't carry my stuff on the same type of terrain that I'm going to encounter in the real world on a real hunt. So I add distance and I add weight to try and counteract that. The other thing that you could do, if you have it available to you, if you're a member of a gym, you have a Stairmaster, you have a treadmill. If you have it at home, probably even easier. Use those to incorporate into your training if you live in a completely flat area where you have no ability to replicate that type of terrain. It is not the same. A treadmill and a Stairmaster are flat. Even if you add an incline, yes, it is going to simulate it, but it is not going to be the same as trying to go up an uneven piece of terrain. But it's better than nothing. It's better than walking on a flat sidewalk if there's nothing else that you can do. Use what you have at your disposal. Try and be creative. Think about what your hunt is going to be like. Think about the parameters of your hunt. Replicate them, add 20, 30%. Make it harder so that when the moment comes, you are able to execute. You don't want to be the reason that your hunt fails. Don't put yourself in a position where you need to reflect on the hunt and realize that you could have been better. You have time now. You have the ability to get ready for the hunt, put yourself physically and mentally in shape to be able to execute when the moment comes. At this point, we've pretty much talked exclusively about physical fitness, getting physically prepared. But we haven't talked too much, not in any detail, about mental toughness. I said it in the beginning, and I probably said it a couple of times, that I think that maybe mental toughness is actually more important than being physically prepared, especially for a mountain hunt, right? We're not talking about going and sitting in a blind and executing and then throwing things on a side-by-side or the back of an ATV. We're talking about people who have to hike in, get ready for a shot under stressful situations in difficult terrain where there's never going to be a perfect way for you to sit and practice for a hunt or practice for a shot. You need to be able to execute in that situation. You also need to be able to persevere when you're not seeing any animals, when the weather is nothing the way you want it to be. Admittedly, this is an area I struggled with a lot. I would find myself thinking of excuses to go home. I missed my wife. I wanted to get back home. Then I discovered 75 hard. This is about the only thing that I can suggest to you to do if you truly want to rid yourself of every excuse that you've ever made. 75 Hard is a mental toughness program that was developed by Andy Frisella, and it is the blueprint for you to be able to kill that inner bitch voice. It is 75 days. It is very difficult. At face value, it might look like it is a physical fitness program or a challenge, as some people like to try and call it. It's not. It's a program for mental toughness. There are 6 components to it. Every day, you have to take a progress photo. You have to do 2 workouts, 45 minutes each. They need to be at least 3 hours apart. One of them has to be outside. Okay? You have to drink a full gallon of water. You have to be on some type of self-prescribed diet. So he doesn't define a diet for you. You have to figure out what your diet is. You have to read 10 pages of a physical nonfiction book. Has to be physical, has to be nonfiction, and you can't drink any alcohol and no cheat meals. You might think none of that has anything to do with hunting. And you're right, it doesn't. It has everything to do, though, with mental toughness. You see, when you first start the program, that first week is going to kick you in the ass physically. You're going to be sore in places that you didn't know you could be sore. Seriously. Like even someone who was pretty active working out 3 or 4 days a week before starting the program, when you start doing 2 workouts a day, 7 days a week, 75 days in a row, no breaks, you get sore. That soreness really only lasts that first week though. Once that first week is over, the soreness starts to go away. Then the mental grind begins. And this is the part where I think anyone can benefit. In order to successfully complete the program, the full 75 days, you will go through multiple peaks and valleys of like, all right, I'm in a groove. I got this. Then that day is going to come where you don't want to do it. You are going to wake up in the morning. You're going to want to hit that snooze button. You're not going to want to work out, or you're going to think that taking the progress photo is stupid. It's half the reason why it's there. It's so that you have to do it. It's a little detail that people would think is unimportant. I almost failed multiple times because I almost didn't take a photo the first time I did it. All of these little actions seem insignificant, but they are very difficult to do. And once you go through the whole program, you will have forced yourself to do things in various weather conditions. When I did it last year, I was running when it was 100 degrees outside. And that fucking sucks. I was also running when it was raining outside, really early in the morning. I've also ran at night when it's 10 o'clock at night because I needed to get that second workout in. But you realize how many excuses you make every single day where you lie to yourself. that makes it easier for you to not do something, you let that inner bitch win. And you might not realize it, because I know I didn't think I was as bad as I was until I did the program the first time. Now I'm doing the Live Hard program, which is a year-round program that incorporates 75 hard plus phases 1, 2, and 3. I have not finished it yet. I'm on phase 2 right now. If you're following me on Instagram, I've been posting my progress at EndurHunt, EndurHunt. As of recording this, I'm on day 3, and I post my progress every day. I don't post the workouts or anything like that, just my little progress sheet. But I'm on phase 2 right now. And as you go through 75 hard, you don't have to do the whole program. I would encourage it. You don't have to. As you go through 75 hard, you have to deal with the reality of the fact that you suck at time management, you're lazy, and you like to make excuses. And it's okay. Everyone does it. They just don't realize it yet. Oh, I don't have time. Yeah, you probably do. That program has been the most beneficial thing for me in terms of mental toughness. Now, I also have the added benefit of having been in the Marines for almost 8 years. So there's a certain level of discipline and grit and fortitude in dealing with stupid shit that you get from being in the military for that long. Anyone who's been in for any length of time will tell you that they know how to deal with stupid shit. That helps, but nothing compared to doing 75 hard. In just 75 days, it made a significant impact on me. In fact, I have recommended it to so many people at work now. I have at least a dozen people who I work with who have completed the program or are currently doing the program at this moment. It has changed all of them. There are numerous secondary, tertiary benefits, like you might lose weight, you might get stronger, you might be healthier generally. All of these things will also benefit you in other ways. You could also take this time to read books that will actually help you. I mean, there's a bunch of hunting material out there. You could read books for the specific species of animal that you're targeting. It's a great opportunity for you to be able to take advantage of 75 hard and benefit from mental fortitude, mental toughness, and resilience, as well as the physical benefits and the mental benefits that come with it in terms of knowledge and education. I'm going to be honest, I don't have too many other recommendations in terms of mentally preparing for a hunt. I'm so bought into the 75 hard, live hard ecosystem that it's my default for basically anyone who feels like they're stuck. I recommend it to everybody. If you have a different program, something that has helped you in the past, leave a comment with it, what it's done for you, what it's called in the YouTube video or on Instagram when I post about it. I would love to hear what other programs are out there that people could take advantage of. I know I love 75 hard. I'm a huge fan of it, but I'm sure there are other programs out there that benefit people. So if you have one of those programs, please drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear about it, research it, and maybe I'll try that out one day. All right, we're coming to the end of the episode here now. I want to reiterate this point one more time because I think it's really important. Your training should be more difficult than the hunt, wherever possible. Try to make it so that when you go into reality, it's easy. It's a walk in the park. That will never happen, but that should always be the goal. Now, I did say that I would share my personal physical fitness routine, and I don't think it's that important generally, if I'm being honest, because my routine is very tailored to me, what I like doing. I mentioned that I do cardio every day. So right now, I'm in the middle of phase 2, as I mentioned earlier, of Live Hard. So I'm working out twice a day, every day. Then I do one cardio and one other type of exercise. Now I'm going to pretend I'm not in phase 2. And if I was just in a regular workout period of my life, I still do cardio every day. I still wake up in the morning, I go for a run, I do a ruck, or I throw my plate carrier on and go for a long walk. I do that every day, regardless. I'm going to do my routine Monday through Sunday, basically. Monday is I start with a run, and then in the afternoon, I'll do some type of weight training. I really am into kettlebells right now. I used to be big into kettlebells when I was in the Marines, so the last couple of months I've been focusing on kettlebell heavy workouts. So I'll do my run in the morning, then I'll do kettlebells. Tuesday, I will do a ruck or a plate carrier walk, something like that in the morning, and then I have jiu-jitsu in the afternoon. Wednesday morning starts with another run. Usually my big thing is to do a run on Wednesdays. Wednesday afternoon is some other type of physical training. So usually Wednesdays I focus on body weight exercises. Specifically, I love doing pull-ups, push-ups. I do some squats, pistol squats, things like that. Very calisthenics focused. Thursday morning, back at the ruck, plate carrier walk, and then in the afternoon I'm doing jiu-jitsu again. Friday morning is another run day. It's my final like full run day of the week. Friday afternoon, if I'm not doing 75 hard in some fashion, I'm probably not working out at all. And then Saturdays and Sundays, usually I don't run much. I do a long walk in the morning or in the afternoon, and then I will, whatever one I'm not doing actual cardio, I'll do some type of yoga or stretching. I used to think yoga was a bunch of crap, and then I started doing it and did a 30-minute session of yoga, and was so tired and exhausted that I was just like, okay, I can never talk shit about yoga ever again. If you've never done yoga before and you think it's bullshit, try it. Do yoga for 30 minutes. Tell me how you feel. Let me know in the comments whether or not you thought you could do yoga and in reality you got humbled, or maybe you just are really good. I'm not. All right, that is generally my physical fitness routine. I work out in some fashion every day. The weekends are active rest days is how I call them. That's why I do walking, yoga, some type of stretching, something to be active. I'd love to hear what your workout routine is. How do you prepare for your hunts? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you what your routine is to get ready for going out in the backcountry. All right, now is the time. You are able to get ready. We have 2 months probably until those elk hunts kick off, and then you've got every other season. You've still got time. It is not too late to start getting ready for the hunting season, but you got to start now. You don't want to delay it and then up being like my buddy, needing someone else to carry your gear for you because you're not going to make it to camp. All right. Thank you all for listening. If you made it this far, I appreciate you paying attention and taking the time out of your day to actually listen to this podcast. Please connect with me on social media. I mentioned it earlier, but I'm at EndurHunt, EndurHunt. That is mostly Instagram. Don't really post anywhere else, but you can also catch me on YouTube. I do respond to every comment that I get on the videos. So please leave a comment, engage, interact. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.